Let's talk about the late round wide receivers. We're talking about wide receivers being taken today. Three of them right now that I think have a lot of upside, that are much higher on than where they're currently being picked, their average draft position. These guys are in rounds 10 or after, so double-digit rounds, and we're doing this based on 12-team drafts. That's the standard, and if it ain't standard to you, you gotta chop and get with the times. So outside of the first 10 rounds, 3 wide receivers today. These guys, I'm not going to describe them as league winning. They're all different. I mean, we got rookies in here. We've got some really old veterans in their 30s. One guy, right? Although, don't worry, the position that he actually plays, the slot, makes it actually doable, and we saw that last year. And then we got a guy in the middle, a guy who's just the average age, the age apex of 26, 27 years old, in that range on a new team, though. So a lot of different pieces to talk about here, and maybe these are all pieces as to why these guys are not being drafted as highly. I think there's some other reasons in there as well, some other biases, some other guys going ahead of them. We're going to talk about all of it. These 3 late round wide receivers that are going to give you the potential chance of winning your league. They will not be the specific reasons, but the depth pieces you need, the flex plays you need, and the guys who can step up when you need it the most. One of these guys has a ton of unknown, unrealized upside. So ladies and gentlemen, fellas, thank you for being here. If you'd be so kind to just hit that subscribe and like button, I greatly appreciate that. Let's start off with the first wide receiver. This man who's 32 years old, and usually that's, what do you mean this guy's going to be a guy you're targeting? You're higher on than consensus. Yeah, by 12 wide receiver spots. This is my wide receiver 49. He's currently going off the board as wide receiver 61 on Underdog Fantasy right now. That man's name is Cole Beasley. Now, there's a couple reasons why he might be going a little bit lower than I personally have him ranked. Cole Beasley last year had a career year, and it honestly ended up being a year where he didn't really see the end zone, even though he's normally seeing high rates of touchdowns when he was with the Cowboys in the red zone. But he only finds the end zone 4 times. But he has a career year other than that in what was a Josh Allen-led, high, efficient, and highly dynamic offense. He saw a 20% target share, 82 catches, 967 yards on 107 targets. He was great, and now he's potentially in line for touchdown regression. So what gives here? Well, the first thing that might actually be dropping him down is the fact that he's on Twitter right now, does not agree with the vaccine and all that type of stuff in terms of the league making the players, potentially making them get vaccinated. He's the most outspoken against it on Twitter, and he's already said that he will not play this season. He doesn't need the money. He's in his 30s. He's about to retire anyways, all this type of stuff. So maybe that's true. Maybe he'll actually go along with that, but he's under contract. It's a lot of money to leave on the table, and we'll see when push comes to shove when he gets to camp with his teammates if he still feels that way. We're going to assume that he's not sitting out the year. It would be something that we have not seen ever before, although we've never seen this type of a pandemic in our lifetimes ever before either. So we'll find out. We'll find out on that pretty soon. But assuming that Cole Beasley plays, that's going to be the market reacting, I would say, with their emotions. They see this guy tweet once or twice. Oh, I can't draft him. He's definitely not playing now. That's the market just assuming that those tweets were taken as definite pen to paper when they were not. I understand that it can influence you somewhat, but that's the point. You have to think about those influences. This is a guy saying this out of frustration on his cell phone, a month or 2 months before the season even starts. Will that weigh ground, or will that hold any weight, hold water 2 months from now? I'm saying no, it won't. And I'm getting a nice little discount on him. At least I think that's partially why we're getting this discount. He was number 5 in slot snaps last year, and I don't expect that to change. John Brown is out of there. They bring in Emmanuel Sanders, who can play some of the slot, but mainly is going to be on the outside. Gabe Davis heading into his second year, I think, is another reason why people don't want to go back to Cole Beasley. And I think it's just too much here. Yes, this offense will regress. Yes, Cole Beasley might not have another season where he catches 80 balls and pushes towards 1,000 yards, but he could find the end zone 6 or 7 times if he's going to run that many routes, the 5th most out of any wide receiver out of the slot last year. And I think people are weighing Gabriel Davis's rookie season, of which he got lucky with touchdowns. Beasley does not. Davis does, with 7 last year. I'm not too concerned about the age, 32.2 years old. He's a slot receiver. He doesn't need the jump ball ability as much. He can still separate in the slot. We've seen this before with wide receivers in the slot. They're not the A.J. Greens on the outside, the Julio Jones on the outside, right? The Andre Johnsons in the past. They don't need to be as dominating when they're in the slot. And now with John Brown gone and Emmanuel Sanders here, the rest of the target competition looks like Steph Diggs, the obvious potentially wide receiver, overall number 1, depending on who you're looking at for the ranks. He's my number 3 wide receiver behind Adams and Hopkins right now. There is the before mentioned Gabriel Davis. There is also Emmanuel Sanders out there. There's also Dawson Knox at tight end, but the benefit for him out of the slot is he doesn't have much tight end competition. Dawson Knox, sure, maybe people think he's a sleeper, but then also there's not much running backs. The running backs aren't really pass catchers. Zach Moss and Devin Singletary all that much in this offense. And I'm not super high on Cole Beasley, just a 15th round pick for a guy who finished way better than that last year, and there's not many reasons why to not go back to him. I think we're getting a slight discount right now because of some of these tweets that he's putting out there. Just look at some of the names going ahead of him right now. His own teammate Gabriel Davis, who benefited last year when John Brown missed time, and the 2 to 3 times where he actually saw the most snaps with John Brown out and had to be more of a contributing piece to the offense. 2 out of those 3 times he laid a goose egg. Well, not necessarily a 0, but 2.1 fantasy points in one of those outings. Not great. I'd expect Sanders to cut more into this Gabe Davis role, even though Sanders is 34, sure. I still expect him to cut into it to the point where 7 touchdowns are not going to be as easy to come by unless he sees a lot more volume this year. When you're dealing with Steph Diggs, when you're dealing with as well Cole Beasley, I don't think that's just going to happen. I think he's at best the 3rd option in this passing game behind Cole Beasley. I think some people see it the other way. Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore, they're going ahead of him. And I get it. It's the same analysis for both of these guys. I'm high on those guys as well. But for Elijah Moore, he has to compete with Crowder right now. He's got a rookie quarterback with a whole new coaching staff. And oh yeah, he is a rookie himself going ahead of a career year Cole Beasley. It just doesn't seem right to me. The upside surely is there, but he's a slot receiver. He's not one of these outside guys like Justin Jefferson last year or AJ Green when he came into the league, or Odell Beckham Jr., who can just dominate on the outside. They might want to play him on the outside. I just don't think they're going to with the Jets. So there's other guys, Jalen Reagor going ahead of him. 3rd best option is in his passing game. It profiles out right now. I think Cole Beasley is the 2nd best in his in a top 5 offense with a top 5 quarterback last year. So those are some of the reasons why I think Cole Beasley, my wide receiver 49, going at wide receiver 61, is a late round wide receiver you want to get to. Normally, I don't hype up these veteran slot guys, but it's a very unique situation where he's just going way too far. He's going 10 picks past where I would actually have him ranked for wide receivers, and he's attached to a dynamite offense and dynamite quarterback. There's a lot of upside there, and they used him so much, 107 targets last year. Great to see. For the 2nd wide receiver in this here video, and you might have noticed something. I got short of hair for the 2nd guy. How does that make sense? Well, the 2nd guy was going to be Amari Rodgers, and then Randall Cobb goes to the Packers, and although it doesn't completely destroy Amari Rodgers, it's going to take away some preseason reps and definitely a lot of snaps, especially in meaningful times, a 2-minute drill, the red zone, where maybe he had a chance to get on the field. So I'm here with the exact same shirt, the exact same setup, the exact same lighting situation to edit this video in with my 2nd guy now to replace Amari Rodgers. And that man's name, he was recently in a video that I did, 10th round pick right now, who I think is worthy of an 8th round pick, maybe even a 7th round pick, although you don't have to take him that early. His name is Marvin Jones. It's only been about 3 or 4 practices in camp, but Marvin Jones is the guy right now, seeing everything from Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, who's been playing great in camp, just went 17 of 20, then he went 18 of 21. I mean, he's not incompleting anything. It's drops at this point. And all he's saying is how good the offense looks and how much he likes throwing to the big-bodied veteran 30-year-old wide receiver Marvin Jones. That wide receiver who in 3 out of his last 4 years has had 9 or more touchdowns. And in 2 of those seasons, he actually missed time, missing 10 combined games in the 2018 and 2019 season. And even with that, he still had 4 of his last 6 seasons having 100 or more targets while he was with Detroit. And yes, he loses Matt Stafford, but he gains Trevor Lawrence, who was a better prospect coming out than Matthew Stafford, which is saying something. Who right away, Trevor Lawrence can break into the league and be a top 15 quarterback. And right away, you get solid play for Marvin Jones. Now, Marvin Jones often finished over the last 3 to 4 years as a top 25 wide receiver. I mean, he was right there about 50% of the time during that span when he was healthy. And now he's being drafted outside of the top 40 wide receivers. He's my number 79 overall player right now, but he's going in ADP as the 117th overall player for a guy who there's no number 1 wide receiver on this offense. All the fantasy football community, I guess, wants to just make Laviska Shenault, make him have this 3-year leap in 1 season. I don't really see that happening. They want to make DJ Shark they want to erase the terrible season, very bad season that he had last year. Even if you take away Gardner Minshew, his actual play of his own separation and abilities. Maybe he just wasn't trying as hard because he had a bad quarterback. I don't know, but he was terrible last season. Marvin Jones continues to be a staple of consistency when he's actually healthy. So he's going 117th overall, and there's other players going ahead of him that I scratch my head. We've talked about Elijah Moore in the past. Love the rookie, competing with a veteran, Jamison Crowder. He's not going to right away be the guy there. I'm sorry. And then you have guys like James Conner. I mean, a running back by committee, an aged running back who has health concerns. I don't get that one. Ronald Jones, a 3-headed backfield as Giovanni Bernard comes on with no passing game work. I don't get that one. Henry Ruggs, I get it. The high capital last year, you're hoping for the big breakout, but John Brown's there and he's a better receiver. I just don't understand because, I mean, maybe Henry Ruggs, but for the most part, these guys going ahead of him, A.J. Dillon's, they don't have massive upside. Aaron Jones just signed a new contract, right? Whereas Marvin Jones has the upside to be the wide receiver 1, has the upside to score 8 touchdowns and have a 900-yard campaign or an 800-yard campaign. And that might not sound like a lot, but when he's going outside the top 115 picks, you're rarely going to find that out there. Marvin Jones right now for me is a late round wide receiver that I like a ton. I like him more than Cole Beasley because I think he has more upside than Beasley and just less overall talented competition around him in the wide receiver core. So go get yourself some Marvin Jones. And now let's get into the final fella, and you'll have to see I won't have the Sharpie haircut, unfortunately, as we get into this last guy. And then the final fella I want to talk about here, and if you're still watching, we do have a 2021 draft guide. It's a limited time only for free right now, or is a way to get it at least for free. Link down below. You can check that out. My ranks, my top 200s, my tiers, player profiles for over 150 to 200 players. Check that all out. It's down below right now. Limited time offer only. So the other guy, I don't even like him that much. I'm going to be honest, but he's just not being drafted at the right spot. He's my wide receiver 47. I thought I'd be around ADP. Right now, as it stands today, about a month away from the season or so, a little bit more than that, he is right now going off the board as wide receiver 62, and I don't see this moving. I don't see him getting up to my wide receiver 47 rank. So no matter when you're watching this, this will be very relevant. That man's name is Nelson Agholor, now in the New England Patriots. There's a lot of question marks. He's on a new team. Does this Patriots team even look good? Who's going to be the quarterback? There's so many things, right, that are just skewing against it. 2 tight ends now. They're going to go 2 tight end sets more, right? So many things are pushing him down. But this is just a number 1 wide receiver on the team right now. And you could say, oh, it's somebody else. And we'll talk through everybody else that they have. It's not. He's the X on the outside. Just like he played last year with the Las Vegas Raiders, he's going to play it again, and you're getting a big discount. He was the first wide receiver off the market, meaning that they were talking to his agent before that. Maybe not him, the player, legally, based on the rules of the NFL at least. But they were talking to his agent before that. First wide receiver off in free agency. New England probably wanted him somewhat badly. They get him to a 2-year, $22 million deal, which was way more than the market was actually indicating. 1-year deals everywhere for wide receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster and a bunch of other guys, right? So he ends up getting $16 million guaranteed at signing of that $22 million. They're going to use him, and they're going to use him often if they're giving him that large of a percentage the second the pen touches the paper. After having up and down seasons in Philadelphia, he was decent in the slot for them, but obviously his drop problems have become viral hits in Philadelphia and all over Twitter. He broke out in 2020. 48 catches, 896 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That doesn't sound like anything crazy, but that's taking into account that although he played in all 16 games, he was healthy. 2 of those games, he wasn't actually a part of the offense. It did not happen until week 3 that he finally got into the offense. Had a 16% target share, was number 12 in the NFL with 22 deep targets, had 8 touchdowns, which will probably regress this year more than likely. But he was great. Downfield, 18.7 yards per reception was number 2. Number 7 in yards per target. He was top 10 in fantasy points per target, which is an insane efficiency metric. On his touches with Derek Carr, who is an efficient quarterback, maybe not downfield, but in general, he was very good last year. So this is a guy coming off of a great year. Now I get it. He's switching offenses, and there's a concern about the quarterbacks here. But Cam Newton last year, number 4 in deep ball completion percentage. I get it. He didn't throw that many, but number 4 still. And Mac Jones, his final 2 years of college, 77.5% completion percentage and 68.8. So he's an accurate quarterback. And Nelson Agholor did get stuff downfield, but he also got it in the intermediate range as well. So I get it. There is some concern there, but it's already built into the price. He's going outside the top 60 wide receivers when he shouldn't be going that late. But Sal, they brought in so many other guys or whatever. I don't believe it. Let's talk through. He's the best wide receiver on this roster. Let's talk through the other ones. N'Keal Harry is asking for a trade. His first 2 years in the league, he has 45 receptions and 21 career games on 81 targets, 414 yards. N'Keal Harry has been bad. Now his rookie year, he was banged up, but anyways, he's looking for a trade out there. Kendrick Bourne is a slot-only player for the most part, coming from San Francisco. His career targets has been 3.7 per game for 30 yards per game. He's going to be in the middle of the field battling with the tight ends and maybe James White, not Nelson Agholor. There is Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, again, middle of the field type guys. One of them might actually be a blocker if that's Hunter Henry. There's James White, who without 2020 Tom Brady for the first time in 2020, he only saw 4.4 targets per game. A great target share overall. Again, I'm not too concerned with those targets at the line of scrimmage with James White. The only guy who could potentially take a ton of work away, and this team will run the ball a lot. Damian Harris would be the guy who probably takes the most away by running the ball, but they're still going to throw the ball not just 200 times. They're going to throw it a lot. Worst will be Lamar Jackson, and then you have the wide receiver 1 there going as a wide receiver 60 right now. I think there's upside here with Nelson Agholor, but there's some steam growing on Jacoby Myers, and people even prefer Jacoby Myers over Nelson Agholor. I don't personally buy it. Look, this is an undrafted free agent who, fine, last year he had 2 top 20 finishes. That's great. One of those was against the Jets who had a bottom 3 secondary last year. So nice for you when there's no other competition on this team. The other one ended up being the number 20 overall spot against Baltimore, but it took a rushing touchdown to actually get him there. Jacoby Myers, I think he's fine, but I think he's just overhyped at this point. Undrafted, had a nice preseason, was fine last year. At times, I think people are blowing out of proportion his 1 to 2 to maybe 3 decent to good weeks that he had. They're blowing out of proportion because he did it in prime time. Against the Jets, he goes off for that massive game in prime time. He's the only thing anybody ever said out of New England all season long. Outside of Cam Newton's first game of the year when he has 2 rushing touchdowns in his first 2 to 3 weeks before his COVID strikes, nobody was doing anything in New England. So I think that's just kind of that bias in our heads on Jacoby Myers being elite. He wasn't drafted for a reason. He hasn't had any breakout potential with Tom Brady in the past for a reason. He could be a fine wide receiver. He's not anywhere near an elite wide receiver. Nelson Agholor, in my opinion, is a much better wide receiver. Now, there are some honorable mentions. Josh Palmer, a 3rd-round pick, in a dynamic Chargers offense, although I think he'll be starting as a backup. Sterling Shepard now going to get a lot more slot usage with Kenny Golladay there and Slayton on the outside. We like that, but he's kind of close to being taken at ADP. My wide receiver 67, ADP 72. So thank you for tuning in to this late round wide receiver video. That's 3 of them right there that I think are the best based on the time of this recording for my rankings versus ADP, their average draft position. You can check out the rest of my rankings all down below in the Supreme Draft Kit limited time offer. There's a way to get it for free in the description, as well as if you would like to, and I would encourage you, and I would appreciate it if you did, hit the like and subscribe button. It allows this channel to reach a lot more people. Now we're in the very heavy duty part of the fantasy football season. I said duty, that is right. The heavy duty part of the fantasy football season is July, August, and beginning of September before the season starts. Most eyeballs or potential chance of these videos going viral, right? If this one happens to see your eyeballs, please do share it with somebody or just hit that subscribe button to see more. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you all in the next one.